Have you ever heard of a writer whose play was so shocking, so out there, that it actually started a riot? I'm not talking about centuries ago. I mean in a modern theater. Well, today we're going to dive into the incredible story of John Millington Synge, the Irish playwright who did exactly that.
So picture this. The year is 1907. You're in Dublin's famous Abbey Theatre, which is, the beating heart of Irish culture at the time. A new play starts, and by the end of it, the audience isn't just booing. No, they are rioting, shouting, throwing things. The police have to be called in. And this wasn't just a one-night thing. This chaos went on for nights. So that begs the big question, right? What on earth could a writer put on a stage that would make an entire audience just lose it to get that kind of visceral, even violent reaction? Well, the answer is kind of simpler and also a whole lot more complicated than you might think. To start unraveling this, we've got to look at the man who wrote the words, J.M. Synge. He was a huge part of a movement that was all about celebrating Irish culture, which honestly just makes the whole riot thing even more wild. So, who was this guy? Synge was a playwright and a poet, and he was absolutely obsessed with capturing the authentic, raw spirit of rural Ireland. People knew him for his language, which was just so lyrical it was almost like music, and for how he focused on the lives of everyday people. The thing is, his version of authentic wasn't always the version people wanted to see. So, where did this, let's call it, unique and controversial point of view come from? To figure that out, we have to go with him to this remote, really harsh place that completely changed his life and his art forever. So on the advice of the famous poet W.B. Yeats, Synge went and spent a ton of time living on the Aran Islands, way off the west coast of Ireland. And listen, this was not a vacation. He totally immersed himself in this rugged world, listening to how people actually talked, watching their customs, and just absorbing this constant daily struggle against nature. This is where all his big themes, survival, fate, the pure power of the natural world, really started to grow. And you can really feel this worldview come to life in his short, tragic play, Riders to the Sea. It's this absolutely heartbreaking story about a mother who has lost every single one of her sons to the Atlantic Ocean. For these people, the sea provides their living, but it also guarantees their death. It's a really bleak but incredibly powerful look at humanity up against a universe that just doesn't care. And he kept exploring these really tough ideas in his other plays, like The Well of the Saints. In that one, two blind beggars get their sight back in a miracle, only to find out that the real world and even each other is kind of harsh and ugly. They find so much pain in what they see that they end up choosing to be blind again. Synge was asking a really tough question. Is it better to live with a nice, comforting lie or a painful truth? Now hold on to that question because he's going to come back to it with some pretty explosive results. Okay, so with that background, this guy exploring harsh truths and the power of lies, we finally get to the play that pushed to Dublin audiences right over the edge, The Playboy of the Western World. So what's this crazy plot that caused all the trouble? It starts with this shy young man, Christy Mahan, who stumbles into a pub way out in the countryside, and he claims he's on the run because he murdered his own father with a shovel. But instead of freaking out and calling the cops, the villagers are fascinated. They think this act of killing his dad is bold, romantic even, and fueled by all their admiration, this meek little guy, Christy, just blossoms. He turns into this confident, poetic hero, a playboy, and even wins the heart of the barmaid.
And that is why the audience rioted. You have to remember, this was a time of intense Irish nationalism. The country was fighting for its own identity, trying to prove itself to the world. And this play felt like a slap in the face. It showed the Irish peasantry, who were supposed to be the pure, noble soul of the nation, as these gullible fools who would cheer for a murderer. That whole idea, plus some of the language used, was seen as a total insult to Irish morality and character. But here's the thing. If you look past all the scandal and the shouting, Synge was going right back to that theme from his other play. He was asking, is our identity something we're born with, or is it something that's created by the stories people tell about us? Christy becomes this big hero because the villagers need him to be a hero. His confidence is built on a lie they all want to believe. It's this brilliant critique of how we, as a society, just decide who our heroes are, often for the shakiest of reasons. The riots, of course, eventually died down, but the play and its author were never, ever forgotten. In fact, despite all the controversy and his tragically short life, Synge's impact turned out to be profound and permanent. So, what's his legacy really? You can kind of break it down into three huge things. First, his absolutely incredible use of language. He just captured the poetry of how real rural Irish people spoke. Second, his dedication to telling authentic stories, which really helped shape the whole mission of the Abbey Theatre. And finally, the sheer depth of his themes. He could mix comedy, tragedy, and myth all together into something totally new and powerful. And get this, he did all of this before his life was cut short by illness when he was just 38 years old. 38. It's just astonishing to think about what else he might have created. And you know, the ultimate irony in all this is that the very play that caused a national scandal is now considered an absolute masterpiece. The unflattering portrayal is now seen for what it is, a complex, insightful, and brilliant look at what it means to be human. It's a cornerstone of Irish drama and really world theater. Which kind of leaves us with one last thought, a question that Synge himself forces us to think about through his character, Christy Mahan. What's more powerful in shaping who we are, the things we actually do, or the stories that we and the people around us decide to tell about them? It's a question that's just as relevant today as it was on that chaotic opening night way back in 1907.